Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Friday Connect. This is your girl Sherelle with Project Purpose Podcast. I am solo today, um, but I intend to have all of you coming into the room. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes. This is Friday Connect. I'm usually joined by my sister Dawn Smith. However, she's not able to join us today. As you all know, she's still dealing with the recent hurricane that happened in Jamaica. The country is still in a devastating state, and so they're looking to rebuild and just need some time off. So she will not be joining us at least for a few more lives. Nevertheless, I intend to bring you the same value, energy, and insight as we always do. So go ahead and come into the room. This is a Friday Connect. Let us know where you're chiming in from if you are joining us live. Of course, you can always still do that whenever you come across the live. And, if you want to leave us a comment or just say hi from wherever, right? Sunny Florida, fabulous Las Vegas, beautiful Istanbul. Welcome, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my chat on my phone. If you have any questions for me today or any comments as we share, just going to be about an hour or so. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll be able to respond either right now or definitely as I rewatch the live, I will make sure that I get to your questions. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about buying a home. And so I'm just giving us a few minutes to see the live, start getting into the live, but we're going to talk a little bit about buying a home. Now, disclaimer, I am not a loan officer. I am not a financial advisor or anything like that. I'm just someone that is speaking from experience and also research, right? So I just want to share with you a little bit about the process. Um, I'm not going to go into too much technical stuff. If that is something that you desire at the end of the live, you can certainly, seek your financial advisor or just visit your local bank or credit union to share additional information with you. Today, I'm just going to go over some general information just to get us prepared. Welcome, guys. Welcome in to the live. Just going to go over some general information. Welcome, Dawn. Welcome, Dawn. I'm glad that you're here. All right, Dawn. So thank you. Yes, you can stay as long as you can. Um, we appreciate you. And listen, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, it would be great if you can join us now, but like I said, want to go ahead and get started. So as you come across this live and you're watching it, um, I won't be babbling along the first few minutes. I'll go right into the information that I want to share. Again, like I said, this is just information that we're sharing. I know when you think about buying a house right now, a lot of people are like, are you crazy? It's not a good time to buy. And with the way the economy is, so many things are going on right now. People are really just trying to buy food, right? And so you're wondering, how can we even think about buying a house? And I get it, right? But when you understand real estate, you understand always that the best time to buy is now, right? There's never a time that you actually wait. You do your research, you do your due diligence, you run the numbers, and then you buy, right? Because there's always other factors that will continue to govern it there. So there's never really that right time. Thank you for being here, Shireen. Appreciate you so much, girl. Oh, by the way, I want to just pause. I meant to say this. I apologize. That we thank you so much for all the beautiful birthday wishes and greetings, and it was just such an amazing time spending time with Shireen. Literally last Friday, like now, we were both doing the live together. If you guys haven't seen that yet, then go ahead and check out the live that happened on November 8th, November 7th, sorry, November 7th, right, which was last Friday. We did an amazing job. We talked a little bit about being in Las Vegas, which is where I'm at right now. And Shireen was here with us. It was our birthday. We're twins, so we celebrated our birthday. It was so nice to have you here, Shireen. And again, we just thank everyone that wished us a happy birthday. We appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, Alexandria. And thank you always, Alexandria, for um, always inviting other people. I love that. Yeah, guys, if you come across the live, or when you come across the live, be be sure to go ahead and share it, right? Share the information with others that might want to know this information as well. So Shireen and Don, or anyone else, as you have questions, just go ahead and leave them in the chat for me. But I'm going to go ahead now and move on to the information that I want to share, those just so I can honor your time for being on here. So the reason why I said, let's talk a little bit about preparing to buy a home, right? And so we're going to talk about the pre-qualification portion, the pre-approval portion of getting that loan. And the reason why I'm thinking now is a good time is because within the next, 3 to 4 months, everyone knows what's going to happen, right? It's going to be tax season. And for the majority of the country, lots of people are getting, what are they getting? Tax return, right? For people like us that are self employed, we know we're not getting any money back, right? We leave just enough to pay the IRS. And that's fine, right? That's how we run our 1099 businesses. But for the majority of the country, a lot of people are on what's called, W-2, and they pay tax before they get their check. And so, of course, oftentimes they look forward to getting a return in the new year, especially those that have children. Now, we know for many parts, we end up being consumers, right? And we're always buying, we're always spending that money. And, the funny thing is, sometimes we don't even remember what we did with the money. For example, I want to put a challenge out to you. If you remember what you did with your tax return for 2025, go ahead. 2024, I think it would have been, right? You filed for 2024. If you remember what you did with your tax return money, go ahead and you can either put it in the chat or just put a yes in the chat. Maybe you don't want to tell us what you did with it, right? I know some people travel outside of the country to get procedures done. But for the most part, a lot of people, they buy a new car, they take a vacation, they pay for braces for the kids or for themselves. And most often, what we do is we pay bills, right? Which, while that is commendable, right? Paying bills. The one of the reasons why we're still in the situation that we are in now is because we take the money, a lump sum of money, and we pay bills, but because nothing changes in our finance, as in, we didn't get a raise, we didn't start a new business, we didn't start a side hustle, we didn't get promoted, we end up with the same income, but we still have the same expenses. So what happened is we end up right back into debt again, and we still have more bills to pay again, right? You never get rid of the bills that way. So whenever you get a lump sum of money and the first thing that you think of doing is to pay your bills, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired of these debt, have all these debt, I'm just going to pay them off. Stop. That's never the right thing to do. The right thing to do, and this is side note, is to use the funds to start a side hustle, start an income producing business activity, right? Whether it's selling digital products, selling merchandise online, learning a new skill, charging for consultation. You have to actually use the money to create an asset. And that asset will now start spitting out cash flow, which you can now use to pay the bills. The cool thing about that is, as I mentioned, the bills will always be there. But now that you have a side business, right, you still have your main job, you're still working your job. So your job is paying the regular bills that it was paying, your survival bills, right, your mortgages or rent, car payment, all those expenses. But we all know that we have additional debt. So your job is paying for your ongoing expenses, but now you have this side business, and the side business is now paying for your debt. It's spitting out cash flow. So you have the debt, and of course you have cash flow coming in. The cool thing about that is, as you continue to create cash flow, you'll be using less and less debt, right? At least the responsible person will. You will figure it out and you will realize, I have all these cash coming in on a consistent basis. I really don't need to use the credit card anymore. So as you're paying down those credit cards and you're not using them, you're building asset, guys. You're building wealth. So side note to that, right? Let's go back to the tax return though. So, like I mentioned, for most of us, it's tax return and we're excited about that money and we just spend it. What if come next year, 2026, instead of spending that money, you start planning from now to get qualified so that you can actually buy a house and you can actually use that money as your down payment, at least a portion of it, right? What a great goal to have. So that's what I want to go ahead and dive into and start talking about today. Um, thank you guys again for being in the chat. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'm right here. You can leave them with me. And I do have my cheat sheet here with me just so I stay on target because, I can really babble on. um, but yeah, let's talk about it. So there's two areas when you're looking to buy a house that people often consider. And one is called pre-qualify, right? Pre-qualify, right? And then the other is called pre-approval. Pre-qualifies Pre-qualify is just simple, where they'll do a soft pull on your credit and they will say, "Oh, your credit looks decent. And are you working?" You say, "Yes, I'm working." And they'll say, "Okay, how much are you working?" And you tell them how much you're working. And they'll say, "Okay, well, based on the information, you're pre qualified for this amount of home." And you can go out and look. But that is just the very bare minimum that you ever want. And oftentimes real estate agent don't really go by a pre-qualify approval letter. They want to see what's called a pre-approval qualification letter. Now, keep in mind, it's still pre, right? It's pre, but the approval goes a little bit deeper. This is where first and foremost they now vet you, so to speak. So first and foremost, they'll ask for your ID to make sure you are who you say you are. And they'll ask for your, like your social security number again. And they'll also do that soft pull that I mentioned on your credit to see where your credit is at. But they'll also ask for additional information. So they'll ask for like your bank statement. They'll ask for your W-2 or pay stub to have proof that you do work where you say you work. And they'll also now start looking at your debt. And again, this is just really a pre-approval process. There's still many factors that go on the back end of getting fully qualified. They call them conditions. So they'll say, congratulations, Sherelle, you are pre-approved for a mortgage loan of such and such and such, based on conditions or pending certain conditions. And that's when you actually will take that letter and you'll actually start house shopping. And when you hand that letter over to any realtor, they're very happy, right? They're like, "Oh, this person is already pre-approved by the bank. This is pretty much good to go." And one will wonder, well, what could go wrong after that? And again, like I said, it could be many factors. It could be depending on the type of home that you're buying, you know, depending on the amount of money that you're making, you're probably qualified for, you're at the threshold of like a mortgage payment amount, right? But let's just say that's just the maximum that you can go, that the bank can lend you, because that's what the bank feels that you can comfortably afford to pay. However, if you want to go into like a community that is like a gated community with a high HOA, now you will start considering additional fees, right? So you have to include that HOA fee onto your mortgage. So those conditions, then the loan officer will say, well, can you show additional proof of income to say that you can manage that additional HOA fee? Some of them have, like memberships and so on and so forth, right? So we're, again, like I said, this is going to be very casual. We're not going to get too deep into it. I just want to encourage you that if you're looking to buy, and again, like I said, I know that it's a trying time. Interest rate is off the roof. But guys, believe it or not, that during trial times, right? During times of hardship and uncertainty, usually also lies opportunities. And believe it or not, a lot of people, when you're prepared, you can capitalize on certain opportunities. If you remember the recent crash in 2008, 2009, there were a lot of people that lost their homes, right? And it was a devastating time for a lot of people. But you best believe there were quite a few people that actually profited from that catastrophe because they were prepared, so to speak. They had the resources available, they had the contacts, they're in the room, they did their research, and a lot of people got wealthy from the downfall of a lot of other people, right? So you get what I'm saying? So even though it's a trying time right now, bear in mind, if you're not working, right? Or if you got your credit is like totally walked, and you're not disciplined to save and things like that, then you're probably not going to be able to buy a house in the first quarter or even the second quarter of next year. That's just a reality, because it takes on average a good year for you to be able to prepare yourself, get comfortable with how the mortgage process works, and become disciplined to follow the straight line so that you can get qualified and stay qualified, right? That doesn't mean to give up, right? Because the times are flying. Can you believe it's actually the end of the year already, pretty much, right? Where did 2026 go? So the time will still fly off. And so if that's you, if you're still thinking of buying a home in the near future, but you just know right now is not it, you're at the bottom, you're nowhere ready, continue to seek out information, continue to learn, continue to watch the live, DM me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help, and we could get on track and start preparing you. But for the rest of us that are right there, right? I like to say that, believe it or not, there are some people out there that know that they cannot afford a particular home or even any type of home right now. That's the truth. And they'll be the one looking for a home. And then there are those out there, right? Not a lot of us, but a few people that are out there that they're thinking that I can't afford a home. No one in my family ever owned a home. I don't think I'll ever be qualified. Yet they happen to be the one that actually qualifies, because they are the one that's been on the job for 5 years, 10 years, right? They're the one that live very, very minimal, right? They live under their needs. So their debt to income ratio, which is something that we're going to talk about, is pretty low, right? It doesn't take a lot for them to live their lifestyle, and they're disciplined to save, right? They probably have been investing in their company's 401k for like the longest while. Their credit is probably amazing because they haven't pulled their credit, and they just knew from the get-go not to use credit card. Those are the ones that I'm actually talking to. You'll be amazed how close you are to actually buying a home if you just know how to play the game. And it really is a game. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's talk about it. So today we're going to talk about 10 steps to qualify for a mortgage. Step number one, you already know step number one. You know it's coming, right? It is your credit. It is your credit profile, your credit report, and your credit worthiness. Now, typically speaking, believe it or not, there are mortgage companies out there and mortgage programs such as the FHA program that will take your credit score as low as 580. That is a low score, guys, because that's considered, that's just like fair. That's not even good credit. Good credit starts from 620 or higher. So between 620 to like 680, is what you have as good credit. Over 680 going into 740, you have great credit. And 740 and higher, you have excellent credit. So those are the different credit categories. So if you have a 580 credit score, believe it or not, you could be qualified for a home, considering all the other qualifications that are needed. So the biggest thing is to pull your credit right now. And you do get a free copy of your credit from annualcreditreport.com. And you can get it from all three credit bureau. So Equifax, TransUnion, and I forgot the other one. TransUnion, Equifax. I can't remember the other one. Do you remember the other one, Shireen? I forgot. You can tell me in the chat. I guess I could Google it right here. I was about to say Credit Karma, not Credit Karma. Experian. So Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. I couldn't remember. Sorry, guys. Late evening for me. Anyway, do you have any questions? Let me see what's going on in the chat while I am talking here, running my mouth. Dawn says, great stuff. A great goal. Love it. Yes. Thank you, guys. And all right, so let's go ahead and keep going. So your credit is very important, and it takes the longest to resolve, right? That is where, as I mentioned, someone that if you have bad credit, it's probably going to take you about a year for you to see a substantial increase. Because keep in mind, oftentimes our credit is bad because we didn't pay our bills, right? Remember that missing payments is the biggest factor. 35% of your credit score is in the bucket of payment history. So if you have bad credit, oftentimes it means that you're not paying your bills on time because you don't have much money. So therefore, for you to fix it right away, you would have fixed it right away if you had the money, right? You have the money, you send it to your creditors, you pay your bill. It takes a few months for them to cycle without you using the cards, of course, and your credit would increase. But oftentimes it stays the way that it is for a long time because nothing really changes in our lives, right? Financially, right? We don't have a raise. We're not doing any side hustle. We're not getting rich. No one is gifting us anything. No inheritance or anything like that. So the situation stays the same. Therefore, your credit stays the same. However, if you're looking to get into a home, then the first thing that you want to do is to see where the credit is at. Because believe it or not, sometimes it's just a few little things that you need to fix on there to get it going. For example, if you have everything else, which usually you need to have like a mixture of credit, right? So you might be paying your bills on time and you're like, why is my credit score still low? It could be because you only have credit cards. You need to also have a mixture of credit. And another live will go deeper into credit. Again, today is just going to be a casual pre-approval for a mortgage. So you want to make sure that you have like an auto loan. Not that I want you to go get an auto loan just to say that you're mixing your credit, right? Don't do that. As a matter of fact, if you can stay away from auto loans, stay away. But you could get a personal loan because it could be as small as $500, and you're getting it to build your credit. So a personal loan is what's called an installment loan. And so it's different from a credit card, which is a revolving loan. You could also, with credit cards, get a mixture of credit cards, such as you have the bank credit cards, but you also have store credit cards, such as, Nordstrom and Macy's and Dillard's. So that's also a mixture of credit. Um, Oftentimes, most of us have student loans. That's another type of debt. If you don't have it, don't go get it just to mix your credit. You could also do secured credit cards to boost your credit. If you have, like say 3 or 4 credit cards and that's all you have, then I would strongly suggest that you go to your bank and you start opening up what's called personal loans. And again, just because it says personal loans doesn't mean it needs to be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. We're talking about as little as $300. $500. As a matter of fact, you can find out what's the lowest personal loan that they give, and you get that one, right? The idea is to get it and just use a little bit of it, and you pay it back on time. So this is where you would set up auto pay. So that's enough for credit. You definitely want to make sure that you have your credit in good standing. Now, some type of mortgage loans, such as the convention loan, requires your credit to be 620, and that those are the type of loans if which is, they only require like 3% down. Keep in mind though, if you're someone that have a lot of money, saved up, if you've been saving for a long time, then also the more money you can put down is the lower your mortgage payment will be. So it would be in your best interest if you have the money to put like 20% down. Also keep in mind, when you do put 20% down on a mortgage loan, regardless of how much the loan is, you also avoid what's called mortgage insurance, which everyone will get when you accept, like the FHA loan, which only requires 3.5%. But keep in mind, there will be a particular amount that is put aside for what's called mortgage insurance as well. So if you have the funds, you can definitely do 20% of what your home value, your home cost is. But if you don't, again, guys, don't worry. Do not let that stop you, right? Because remember that you can buy the home, you can always pay more. You can send in more money than what your mortgage is as your life increases, your income increases, so on and so forth. So you could actually pay off that mortgage sooner. So just because you may have mortgage insurance, it's not the end of the world. Okay. So that's something to think about. Um, the next thing that we want to talk about, so you want to make sure that you look at your credit, pull your credit. If there's any discrepancy on your credit, you want to take care of those quickly. And if you don't know how to do that, you can DM me and I will certainly help you. But believe it or not, they do get things wrong. This could also be why your credit score is low, because they could have the wrong name on there. They could have the wrong job. They could, if there's a senior and you're a junior, they could put information on your credit file that is not yours, right? And vice versa. Your address could be off. And other things could be wrong. Like I said, your name could even be spelled incorrectly, and all of that will affect your credit score. So you want to take this time, if you're thinking of getting a home around April or May, to get your copy of your credit report, look at it. You won't get the score, but you'll have your credit profile. So you'll make sure that everything is correct. And that is the first step, guys, in starting to get pre-qualified, pre-approved for a mortgage loan. Now, if everything is good and the only thing that is low is your score is under 580, then there are ways to fix it. Get on it. See what it is. It could be collections, right? Are there public records that are negative? Start, taking responsibility to address those and get them resolved. Um, If your score is over 580 or even over 620, congratulations. That's amazing. That is step number one. So you just put that aside. Now, keep in mind, whenever you're looking to get qualified for a mortgage, you want to make sure that that's all that you're focused on for the next 6 months, if not a year, especially before you get your mortgage. You do not want to take out any new debt, right? And certainly when you do get approved, especially when you get approved, you do not want to take out nothing new on your credit, because guess what? It does take an average 30 to 60 days to close on the loan, and the lender will pull your credit again. And if they had pulled your credit in the beginning, there was no car payment, no car loan, no car loan at all, and now they pull it again and see a car loan, guys, you're in big trouble. Believe it or not, a lot of people are not aware of this, because really it's not their job to really tell you. I'm not sure whose job it really is. I want to tell you that if you're looking to get a loan, a mortgage loan, which is usually the biggest expense that you get on your credit, your personal credit, that is, you can get business loans and stuff like that, and of course that's another story. But oftentimes a mortgage is like the biggest expense, right? So it requires a lot. And so when you are approved, you want to not do nothing at all. No one pull your credit. No insurance company, nothing at all should pull your credit until you close on that loan. Okay, so that's the credit. So that is step number one. Step number two is pretty easy. It falls right off step number one. As I mentioned, you want to know where your credit falls. So, as I mentioned, it's either 580. 580 is the lowest, right? You really want to aim for 620. And honestly, if you're a boss, you really want to go for 720. That's when you're in great credit. You're not even excellent, believe it or not. There's still another tier, but hey, who have time for that, right? If you can get there, people like Shireen Petgrave, then that's great. I know other people are on here that have perfect credit, and that's amazing. But you don't need a 850 score, believe it or not. So here's a trick. Not really a trick, but here's facts. If your score is between 745, so let's just round it off to 750. Between 750 and 850, you're still considered excellent credit. So whatever the person with the 850 will get, so will the person with 750. So just continue to work on your credit, but don't spend too much time on it, and don't get too obsessed with the credit that you're not living your life, right? um, so you definitely want to know those requirements and understand the type of loan that is out there for a mortgage, and you can talk to your loan officer, as I mentioned, or your local bank, and they'll explain all of that to you. Step number three is a big one. This is to know what's called your debt to income ratio. And again, I'm not going to get too technical. Your loan officer will go over this. Typically, there's a percentage, there's a threshold that you need to be in to be able to qualify for more debt, right? Because all of us have debt. So they're saying, we know that you're working, but we know that you also have expenses, right? Everyone have rent, light bill, water bill, utilities, grocery, insurance, car payment, things like that. So whatever your debt is, you want to make sure that you are 43% or less. Excuse me. You actually want to aim for a lot lower, like 30, 35%. There are loan companies that will actually go all the way up to 43%, with the debt to income ratio. And what that simply means, guys, and we're going to move on from this. Again, I'm not making it too technical, is what your income is versus what your expenses are, right? So in other words, when you bring home, let's just say, you bring home $5,000, and your expenses are $2,000, so you're left with 3,000, right? And they're looking at it, they're like, okay, how much money do they have left over to pay a mortgage? Because even though, yes, I know that sometimes where we're renting could be as high or sometimes even higher than what your potential mortgage could be. At least that used to be back in the days. Nowadays, mortgages are going to be pretty high. No joke. However, it's gonna be higher and higher. So we just have to go for it now. So you want to make sure that you have a wide gap between how much you're taking home and how much your expenses are. When you look at it, right, and everyone knows their numbers, when you look at it, if you realize after you pay your bills you have no money left over, then you're not ready for a mortgage. You're truly not ready for a mortgage. And the only way that you'll be ready for a mortgage is if, like you're saying, well, I'm paying, I don't know, say $2,500 for rent. And I know that I can, and I'm comfortably paying $2,500 for rent. Then I know that I can pay, that $2,500 that I'm paying for rent will go over into mortgage. Now, keep in mind that unlike an apartment complex, you will also now be the one that is responsible for your home, everything in your home. So you do not want to leave yourself so tight that all you have is the mortgage payment. You always want to have reserve so that when anything goes wrong. And if you're buying a new home, that's great. Oftentimes you have those warranty in the beginning of your home, so the contractor will take care of those. But every now and again there are things that are outside of your warranty that you, the homeowner, will now be responsible for. Not to mention that as women, a lot of us do get crazy when we get the new home, and we go crazy over furnishing it. And this now starts to push us in more debt, where we oftentimes are using credit cards to buy these furniture and curtains and artwork and stuff like that. And we're having these additional expenses on top of our mortgage. That is why you want to make sure that you leave a wide gap between what your mortgage will be and what you're earning. A way around that, as you already know, is to increase your income, right? This is where you definitely want to start that side hustle, get a raise, um, you know, increase your skills so that you can get promoted. And don't forget, if you are truly looking for a side hustle on here, then DM me. I got just what you needed, right? I got you. So now let's talk about the next step would be to save for, to have a reserve, so to speak. And again, like I said, this information is very, very, it's ready for the people that are on the job many, many years. I want to also say that you have been contributing to your 401k, which is great. And that could also be an avenue for you to be able to showcase when you're looking to get pre approved for your mortgage. They're not going to ask you to take out the money out of your 401k, right? They just want to see it, to say that worst case scenario, if something should happen, you are still able to pay this mortgage. And they usually want to see enough funds to cover the mortgage for 2 to 6 months. So if you're the person that is only doing like a little 1% into your 401k, that probably won't cut it, right? You need to be able to show, let's just say your mortgage is $2,000 a month. You need to be able to show 6,000, 8,000, sometimes even $10,000 in reserve to cover the mortgage just in case something goes wrong. So that is called your reserve. So now keep in mind, what money will you need for the mortgage? Now, along with the down payment, so you will definitely need a down payment, right? So we talk about getting your credit right. We talk about knowing the type of loan that you would want and what score would qualify you for that type of mortgage, credit score, that is. We also talked about understanding your debt to income ratio, which is how much money you're bringing in versus what your debts are. So now we're also talking about being able to know what money to bring to the table. So yes, you'll bring money to the table. You need to. Even though there are many programs out there, right, that different counties, different communities, different states that might offer what's called grants. So these are, down payment assistance. And you can certainly Google this information, guys. You can just Google down payment assistance in my state. So whatever state you're in, and a bunch of information will pop up for you. Just go through it. until you find the right one. Normally it's like a state website, and it will tell you what is available. So funds are out there available for you, right? However, when a loan officer is looking to pre-approve you, they still want to see some money. So you need to be also consistently saving. You should have been saving already if you're looking to buy a house in May. So, and again, this doesn't have to be a crazy amount, but it needs to be, substantial enough to where, keep in mind that you will need a down payment. So, for example, if you're buying, like a $400,000 house, let's just say 350, which is the average home right now in America across all states, $350,000, guys, believe it or not. You wanna have 3.5% of that is the minimum that you would need as down payment. That is the FHA loan, right? If you're going with other type of loans, it could require more. Now, I do know this additional type of loan called the USDA loan, which is homes that allow you to, they're located in like rural areas. So if you're someone that is looking to go off the grid a little bit, be in the countryside, so to speak, a little bit, there are different loans out there, and sometimes those can actually be no money down, right? So that's something that you can also look into. Again, you can Google USDA loans, USD as in David, A as in Apple, loans, and you can, in your state, and you will find the information, right? So you need to have some money aside. Now, when you're doing this with your bank, you also, a tip here is also to make sure that there's no sudden movement into your bank account. So, for example, you shouldn't suddenly get, you're always depositing $5,000 every month, $5,000 every month, $5,000 every month, and then suddenly you deposited $10,000 or $20,000, right? That is going to start looking fishy to the loan officer, and they're going to question it. So they're going to be like, where did you get this money from? And if it's a legitimate money, for example, someone can gift you, right? Someone, you could say, oh, my grandma knew that I was planning on buying a home, and so she gave me $20,000. Eventually they'll ask grandma to write a letter to just say that this is a gift. But my point is, don't take money from other people to hold money for them. Don't suddenly do anything suspicious, because remember when we talked about getting pre-approved based on conditions? So these are some of the conditions. If they are looking at your bank statement and they start seeing some funny money, then they're going to question it as well. And if you cannot give them an answer that is satisfactory to them, then they can actually deny you the loan. So again, you want to be careful with your bank account. Continue to do what you've always been doing. Now, keep in mind, of course, you can always have like an increase, right? Like you could say, I was always making $5,000. Now I'm making $5,500. Something like that is not bad, because again, you can prove it with your pay stub. So you get the picture. So that's something that you also want to make sure that you have in place, which is having reserved. Now, you also want to have your documents, guys. And so you want to start getting this together. And keep in mind, when you're looking to buy a home, they usually require like 2 years, 2 years of everything. So anything over 2 years is golden, but minimum 2 years. So 2 years tax return, 2 years on the job, minimum, 2 years at your residency, minimum. And of course, they will also look for your W-2s, and we already mentioned the tax return. So when you're thinking about this, what it simply means is, if you're thinking about buying a home in April or May, do not suddenly change your job, or do not suddenly move out of your apartment and move into a new apartment just because the rent is lower, regardless of the reason, right? Because the mortgage lender, they're looking for stability. They're looking to see that you're responsible and that you are consistent and that you can stay for the long haul. So they want to make sure that you're trustworthy. So you also want to keep this in mind, guys, when you're thinking about buying a home, which means if you just got a new job you're probably not going to get, you're not ready yet to buy a home, not the traditional way. And keep in mind, everything that we're talking about is the traditional way. I know my hubby will get on me, and he likes to talk about creative finance and buying homes creatively. And we're in that market, right? But not everyone is. Most often you have to go the traditional route, which is to get a mortgage loan. And so to get pre-qualified, you want to make sure that you have your tax returns. Those tax returns should show how much money you are claiming that you're making, right? That's why, um, if you are a W 2 person, it's golden, because oftentimes your tax return is showing, let's just say I forgot to mention this as well, guy. Keep in mind nowadays, for you to qualify for that home that I mentioned, which is average home cost $350,000, you need to be making between $90 to $120,000 a year. You actually need to be making closer to the $120,000 a year. 110 is a good, benchmark. So your tax returns should reflect that. So if you have one tax, remember they're going to do the average of the both of the two taxes. So if you have one tax that is only showing, say, 40,000 the previous year, but this year you did do amazing and you got some increase, but it's only like, say, 60,000, they're going to put them together to get the average. So that's not going to qualify you. If you're looking to get a $350,000 home, you would want both tax returns to show that you've been consistently making 110,000. Like I said, anywhere from 90,000. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're thinking about buying a home. I know it's a lot of stuff, it's a lot of information, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people stay away from it. You shy away from it, but the whole um philosophy behind it, I believe it's the intrinsic feeling. It's the reward that you get, because it really is who you become, right? Who do I have to become to own such a beautiful asset? Because it truly is an asset for the most part. And I also want to also put this in there, that, guys, that, listen, a mistake that my hubby and I make, and a lot of family members, a lot of us, because we did not know, right? You grew up, you heard the regular saying, like everyone else: go to school, get a good education, go get a good job, and go buy a house. And it oftentimes, guys, is always just a single family home. When they say to buy a home, they just mean to buy a home that you can live in, and you just have this, you know proud moment, I guess, right? I own a home. No one truly taught us that we should buy the homes that can also produce income. And I'm talking about, the minimum is to buy a duplex, right? Everyone wants that dream house right away. And we weren't taught differently, for a lot of us. And we end up being slaves to those homes for a long time. And we end up being that's the only thing that we actually achieve in our life, right? And we feel comfortable with it because everyone else is doing it. Like, you think you made it in life just because you have a home. Do you know that there are a lot of people out there that own 5 homes, 7 homes, 10 homes, 20 homes, apartment complex, hotels? Have you ever heard of the game Monopoly? It's real. It's in real life. So, one of the mistakes that we made, like everyone else, is to buy a residential home. Now, we have learned since then how to turn around and let that home make money for us, right? But if you're someone that is thinking about buying a home now, I want to strongly encourage you, keep in mind that any home that is 4 units or less, right? So it could be a quadruplet, a fourplex, right? Quadruplet. It could be a triplex, it could be a duplex, or a single family home. But keep in mind, if you a fourplex or less units are still considered, I should say, is still considered a residential home, right? If you start going over 4 units, now if you're going 5, 6, you are now tapping into commercial loan, and that's a whole nother qualification, right? But for you to qualify for a residential home, you could either buy a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, and a fourplex, guys. Now, of course, a fourplex, oftentimes, depending on the location and the condition that it is in, is oftentimes going to be more than a single family, right? It's 4 units. But I'm telling you guys, if you could ever research and get your hands on a fourplex, you're setting yourself up for generational wealth. I promise you. Because it's the same qualification whether it's a single family or a fourplex. Now, keep in mind that the cool thing about this is that you are now actually tapping into income producing asset, which means later on you can sell this home and go buy your dream home, right? No one says just because you buy a home you need to stay in it forever, right? But the cool thing about this is that you can live in one unit and rent out the other 3 units, right? You have people that you're both winning because you're providing them with something somewhere stable, clean, affordable, reliable to live in. And in turns, they're paying you rent. You're now using that rent to pay down your mortgage, guys. You're literally living mortgage free. Not to mention that the home is oftentimes growing in equity, right? So your house becomes way more valuable, and you can now later on, not right away, not refinance either, never refinance, but you can take out a loan against it, right? You can do what's called the home equity line of credit, or you can look into creative finance and use this home as collateral, and you could then go buy your dream home. So that's another tip that I want to give you. If you take nothing away from this, um, is to, if you're looking to buy, do not get caught up emotionally like I did, like we did, right? That a lot of us did, and go buy your dream home as your first home, right? Especially when you're young, you have life to live, you have traveling to do, impact to make. So do not get, house poor, as they would call it, right? You're still struggling every month to pay this mortgage, and it's just you, your husband, and your dog. And keep in mind, guys, even if you have kids, children, right? You can still buy a fourplex, even a duplex, guy. Now, I know a lot of you might be like, okay, I'm young, I'm already working a job, I have a family to take care of. I don't have time to be a landlord, right? I cannot manage these other 3 properties, and I get that, right? You could hire a property manager, but if you don't want to do that at all, then you could simply look into a duplex. Like, the least that you should really buy is a duplex, right? And that way you live in one unit, and oftentimes these are like 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. They're self-contained, so it's still enough space for you to live in and rent out the other unit. But the cool thing is, this will qualify you for way more homes in the future. You'll be living with less stress. You wouldn't have to worry about, if you get sick on the job, or if you get fired on the job, how will you pay your mortgage? Do you know how many people end up in foreclosure? Do you know how many foreclosures are on the market? They did not intend to foreclose. They did not intend to not pay their mortgage. But life happens, guys. And if you and your spouse are the breadwinner and you're only working for corporate America, and you happen to get sick, any one of you, or get fired, what happened to the mortgage? Right? So you want to protect yourself. Can't say I didn't tell you. I made that mistake, but we're not making that mistake no more. We are constantly looking into real estate. We're moving forward into real estate, and you best believe we're always looking for duplexes, triplex, quadruplex, right? So you want to keep that in mind. Now, we already talked about everything else, really. We talked about paying down, we talked about having your documents together. So let's go back over that a little bit, and then we're just going to end this really quickly. Remember, we talked about finding your documents. So you want to make sure you have your ID and that it's up to date, right? Like, make sure your address is on your ID, your current address, right? um, Make sure you stay on the job. So if you're thinking of buying a home, do not quit the job. Do your best to stay, right? Keep your documents, your W-2s, your bank statements, your tax return, in a folder, right? Have them ready. Remember, you need 2 years of um, tax return and information like that, so that you'll have it ready for your loan officer. Now, we also want to talk about, if you have, let's just say, like I mentioned, you have the 620 credit, and it's great, right? And you can leave it there, but guys, you could go a step further by paying down your debt. Credit card is a no no when it comes to looking towards being pre approved for mortgages. So, you definitely, if it is in your power to do it, you want to stop using those credit cards and you want to start paying them down. As you're doing that, guess what's happening, guys? Your score is going up. Remember, the higher your credit score is, the better interest rate you'll get. Right now, it's on average about 6% or so. That's still pretty high, but believe it or not, if you have bad credit, like for those of us that are in the 580, you're going to get a higher interest rate than the person that have 620, the person that have 720, the person that have 750. So the better your credit score is going to be better for you, because you're going to get a lower interest rate. And you can also ask for, you'll have favor, right? You could maybe ask for um assistance, like I mentioned. You could ask for additional perks. You could maybe even qualify for what's called interest buy down. Again, you can talk to your loan officer about all those things, right? So you also want to avoid, we talked about this already, but you want to avoid any big financial changes. So we talked about, once you are approved, pre approved, and you're under what's called underwriting, you're in that process, right? They're now reviewing your loans and checking everything. You do not want to go get no new credit card, no major loans, nothing like that, right? Because that's going to be a big red flag, and it's going to cause problem. It could definitely deny your loan. So that's something to be careful of, because some people think, oh, I'm approved for my home, they already put my credit, I'm going to close in like 30 days, I can go out and I can start, apply for a credit card, because I know I'm going to need furniture. No, no, no. You wait until you close. You know that it's closing date, you're at the title company, you close, you have those keys in your hands, you have the deed in your hand, most importantly, and then you can go shopping. Okay. And that's pretty much the information that I have to share with you today, guys. It is still possible, right, in this time and age, to buy a home. You want to run the numbers. There's a lot of deals out there, especially if you're someone that is, very handy, or if your spouse is, right? You can certainly buy a fixer upper, right? If the numbers are right. I was always told, and I'm sure you've heard this before, where you should buy the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood, right? In the prestige neighborhood. And when we say nice, we don't necessarily mean the big house with the picket fences and things like that. We just meant, when it comes to real estate, location is key. So is it a prime location? Is it close to the airport, to the highway? Are there, other corporations coming around you? Do you see where they're putting up, these signs, coming soon, coming 2027, coming 2028, and you know that a major factory is coming, and they're gonna need, workers. So there's gonna be employees. Oftentimes, depending on the amount of new people that come into the area, they're looking for homes, right? Then whenever they're looking for homes, other companies start to come in as well. There's going to be hospitals coming in, there's going to be fire station coming in, there're going to be supermarkets coming in, there're going to be banks coming in, and so that's going to increase your property value. So if you can find a fixer upper, take your emotions out of it, buy it, and you take your time and fix it up. That's the information that I wanted to share with you guys. Shireen says good stuff. Thank you, Shireen, for hanging in there. I know it was pretty long. Thank you, my family members, for joining. Don't forget to continue to share the live when you come across it. For anyone that you know is looking to buy a home in the near future, or someone that may just be curious about the process of even starting to look into getting pre-approved, share this live with them. If you have any questions as you come across this live, be sure to let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And join me on the next live connect. I want to let you know, guys, also just before I go, I may be looking to change the time. I know right now I'm doing it for 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm on the West Coast, so that's actually 4 p.m. for me. It's throwing me off a little bit, I have to say, and it's been more and more of a sacrifice. And so I'm thinking about working it out in the near future where I may change the time, maybe even change the date. Let me know your thoughts. Um, do you have any suggestions? I'm totally open to suggestions. In any event, whatever I decide to do, I will let you know. But I thank you for your support so far. Until you hear from me otherwise, we'll meet here again, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday for Friday Connect. This is where we get together. We talk about stuff like that, right? We talk about fun stuff, but we also want to talk about things that's important to us to make us move further on in life. As we get the information, we share the information. That is what I'm passionate about. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being on, and we will catch you on the next live. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you so much. Bye for now. Bye, guys.